If you like what you see here on the outside, you're gonna love what you'll see on the inside.
It was a business born on a lie, built on a double meaning, and launched on April Fool's Day. 6 friends with zero experience had a simple, some would say ridiculous idea. Take everything they loved, sports, wings, beer, and beautiful women, and put it under one roof. They didn't think it would work. They didn't even know how to turn on the ovens. For 40 years, this company has been sued, investigated, protested, and criticized. Experts have predicted their demise for a decade. So how did Hooters not only survive but thrive while playing by their own rules? How did they turn lawsuits into multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns? And is the world's most controversial restaurant chain finally facing its endgame? This is the story of a brand that knew its audience, weaponized its controversy, and built an empire in the most unlikely way possible. This is the story you haven't heard. This is behind brand success. Our story begins not with a grand vision, but with a joke. April 1st, 1983. 6 buddies, Gil DiGianantonio, Ed Drosty, Dennis Johnson, Billy Rainieri, Ken Wimmer, and L.D. Stewart, incorporated their new venture. The date was no coincidence. The idea was so absurd they treated it like a prank. Their mission statement wasn't found in a business textbook. They just wanted a clubhouse they couldn't get kicked out of. The formula was simple, a relic of a less complicated time. Anchor it with sports, big screen TVs broadcasting every game. Fuel it with cheap beer and buffalo wings, a food that was just gaining national popularity. And then, the secret sauce: the servers. They wouldn't be waitresses. They would be Hooters girls. Young, attractive, and dressed in a uniform that left little to the imagination, orange shorts and a white tank top. The name itself was a wink. Officially, it's about the owl in their logo. But as any teenager could tell you, and as a 1970s SNL sketch famously confirmed, it's a slang term for a part of the female anatomy. They chose Clearwater, Florida, for their first location, a spot where, ominously, every recent business had failed. The founders were so green that on opening day, October 4th, 1983, they had to beg a friend to drive down and show them how to fire up the industrial kitchen equipment. The chaos continued. Their alcohol license hadn't come through. And then, 2 police officers walked in. The founders feared a shutdown on day 1. But it was another prank, one of the founders in a convincing costume, trying to scare his partners. This was the culture, a boys' club where the line between business and a gag was always blurry. With a non-existent marketing budget, they had to get creative. Their first campaign? One founder rented a chicken suit and ran around the streets of Clearwater. It was so bizarre it worked, landing them a small write-up in the local paper. But their first real break was pure, unplanned luck. During the 1984 Super Bowl, Washington Redskins star John Riggins came in for lunch. He loved it so much he brought the entire team back after their victory. The photos of the champions celebrating at Hooters were plastered across sports pages nationwide. Sales doubled almost overnight. The joke was starting to look like a genuine business. By 1991, Hooters had exploded to over 50 locations and $100 million in revenue. The franchise model, sold to a new corporation, Hooters of America, was working. The brand got another massive boost when the very first Hooters girl, Lynn Austin, became Playboy's Playmate of the Month in 1986, complete with a feature on the restaurant. But with great success came great backlash. The criticism was loud, and it was about to get legal. In 1991, the first major lawsuit hit. The EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, began investigating Hooters for gender discrimination. The charges were clear: they only hired women for their front-of-house serving staff. Men were relegated to kitchen and management roles. More lawsuits followed. In 1997, 3 men from Chicago sued after being denied server jobs and won a settlement. This was the moment that would break most companies. But Hooters did something brilliant. They didn't just lawyer up, they marketing upped. They leaned into the absurdity of the claim from their perspective. Their defense was twofold, and legally ingenious. First, they argued that the Hooters girls were not just waitresses, they were entertainers, a core part of the product itself. Just as a Hollywood director can hire a man to play James Bond or a woman to play Wonder Woman, Hooters said they were casting for the role of Hooters girl. This fell under an exception in employment law known as a bona fide occupational qualification, BFOQ. Second, they launched one of the most brazen marketing campaigns in history. Meet Vince. Hooters launched a full-scale ad campaign asking, "Are you Hooters material?" featuring this very unconventionally attractive man in their signature uniform. They put him on billboards and in newspapers. The message was a masterclass in deflection. "This is what you're asking for. This is ridiculous. We're not discriminating, we're curating an experience." They turned a potentially devastating PR disaster into a viral marketing sensation, decades before viral marketing was even a term. They weaponized the controversy. The lawsuits didn't hurt them, they provided free nationwide advertising, cementing their brand identity in the public consciousness. But if you think the lawsuits were peak Hooters chaos, you haven't heard about the Toyota incident. In April 2001, management at a Hooters in Indiana announced a contest for the employees. The girl who sold the most beer would win a brand new Toyota. The team rallied. Jody Berry sold an incredible amount and won. Her manager blindfolded her, led her to the parking lot, and revealed her prize. Not a Toyota car, but a Toyota, the Star Wars action figure. The contest had started on April Fool's Day. It was all a prank. Jody, understandably, didn't laugh. She sued. The case was settled out of court, with her attorney stating she'd received enough money to go to a dealership and pick out whatever type of Toyota she wants. It was a costly joke, but a drop in the bucket for the now thriving empire. And with money to burn, Hooters decided to embark on its most ambitious, and most foolish, venture yet. They started an airline. No, seriously. In 2003, Hooters purchased Pace Airlines and rebranded it to Hooters Air. They painted the planes orange and white. And their unique in-flight service? 2 Hooters girls on every flight, hired not as trained flight attendants, but as entertainers. Their job was to sing, host trivia, and sell merch mid-flight, all while wearing the iconic uniform at 30,000 feet. For a moment, it was a novelty success. Flights were cheap, at $129 each way, and curiosity drove sales. But the airline industry is a graveyard for billionaires. It's a brutal business with razor-thin margins, soaring fuel costs, and intense competition. Combine that with the post-9/11 travel anxiety, and Hooters Air was a perfect storm of bad timing. Furthermore, while a guy might book a flight for the novelty, would a family vacationing to Disney World choose Hooters Air over a traditional carrier? The answer was a resounding no. The brand's seedy stigma had finally found a market it couldn't penetrate. After just 3 years and a staggering $40 million loss, Hooters Air crashed and burned for good. It was the ultimate April Fool's joke, and Hooters was the punchline. Today, the landscape has changed dramatically. The success of Hooters inspired a wave of competitors, Tilted Kilt, Twin Peaks, who refined the breastaurant model, often with more elaborate themes and menus, eating into Hooters' market share. More importantly, society began to change. The Me Too movement brought workplace culture under a microscope. A study from the University of Tennessee found that working in such environments could be damaging to women's mental health, leading to higher anxiety and disordered eating. Allegations of a toxic workplace culture at Hooters surfaced, with lawsuits from employees about unwanted advances and unfair weight policies. In 2021, a new, even skimpier uniform redesign backfired spectacularly when employees took to TikTok to complain, forcing the company to backtrack. The core problem for Hooters is that its greatest asset became its biggest liability. The food was never the main draw, and many critics call it overpriced and overrated. As one Hooters consultant brilliantly admitted, delivery became a key strategy because now if your partner sees a charge for Hooters, you can just say it was delivered. The company itself acknowledges the shame associated with its brand. So, is this the end? Hooters has closed dozens of locations in recent years. Business Insider famously suggested that millennials are less interested in breasts than their elders, a headline that's reductive but points to a real cultural shift. In response, Hooters tried to launch a more family-friendly spin-off called Hoots, with more modest uniforms, but it failed to gain significant traction. The world might have been ready for a less controversial Hooters, but Hooters wasn't ready to be anything else. The story of Hooters is a masterclass in understanding a niche audience and defending it at all costs. They took a concept that should have failed and, through a combination of luck, legal maneuvering, and outrageous marketing, turned it into a global phenomenon that lasted 4 decades. It raises a complex question: is Hooters a champion of free choice, offering flexible, well-paying jobs to women who enjoy the work? Or is it an outdated relic that objectifies women and thrives on controversy? There is no easy answer. And that dichotomy is exactly what kept the brand in the headlines, and in business, for so long. The final chapter on Hooters is still being written. Its future is uncertain. But its past is a bizarre, controversial, and utterly fascinating story of business, branding, and the lengths a company will go to protect its identity. What do you think? Is Hooters a problematic brand that's finally being held accountable, or a harmless business that gave people what they wanted? Let's have a respectful discussion in the comments. If you were fascinated by the rise and fall of this controversial empire, you'll be shocked by the story of the decline of Beyond Meat. That video is right here. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more behind the brand stories you won't hear anywhere else. Thanks for watching.